The plant spirit familiar. Lots of folks have been asking me to do a class on this topic, and it's been a little bit of a challenge coming up with a way to present this because usually this is information that is best handed to somebody directly, really tailored to meet somebody's individual needs where they are on the path. It's a little bit of a mystery, a little bit of an initiatory process, but I think I figured out a way to present it in a way here on the YouTubes that feels good, that I feel like is going to give you lots of inspiration, lots of answers, lots of actionables to get deeper into your own relationship with familiar. So, what is a plant spirit familiar? It is our guardian, guide, mentor, teacher from the other side. This is just like any other familiar spirit that you would find in any other tradition of sorcery or craft or magic, that we want to have a connection in the other world. We want to have someone who is more plugged into the fullness of things to teach us, to give us perspective that we may not have being residents of the realm where we normally live. Now, of course, in order for a plant spirit familiar relationship to happen, we have to first have the foundation of animism, of sorcerous animism, that plant spirits are persons, that the plants that we work with are embodied by spirit, that they are conscious, aware, intelligent, they are capable of communication, they are cognizant of our presence as we are of theirs. And if we don't have that animistic foundation in place, then there's no real ability to have a relationship, because what is it that we're having a relationship with, right? It's not very dynamic. So we have that sorcerous animistic viewpoint of who the plants are in place, and then we're aware that we are trying to cultivate and nourish a relationship of power, to have someone on the other side of the hedge who acts as a personal teacher. And this is, for me, where the real beauty and the real mystery of a plant spirit familiar relationship comes in. And it's an aspect of this you rarely hear people talk about, unless they're people who are actually deeply engaged with familiar spirits. And that is, the whole point of familiarship is that you have someone who is as rooted in the other world as we are rooted in this world, who sees you, with whom there is camaraderie and trust, the ability for us to be vulnerable and to open ourselves up and to be who we really are radically, right? Because the whole point of the relationship is that the familiar spirit will tailor what is brought into our lives based on who we are and where we are on the path, rather than giving us textbook lists, prescriptive, broad spectrum, do this, do this, do this, do this in order to do sorcery or in order to grow spiritually or to heal. They are tailoring every experience they send, every bit of wisdom, every dream, every realization, every challenge, every initiation, to exactly who we are as individual people. In the same way that a great herbalist should be formulating and building medicine to suit the individual nature of the person they're working with, right? This is very much the way of the plant spirits. So when we are in these relationships, these familiar relationships, we are not only gaining access to wisdom and perspective of otherness, that wisdom and perspective is being dovetailed into who we are. It's being brought to our level. It's meeting us where we are. And that allows us to grow incredibly quick. There's a quickening that happens because the information speaks to us. It is relevant. It is usually coming through in our own internal language symbols. And it speaks to the fullness of who we are from the fullness of reality. And so this relationship is incredibly powerful, and one that at a certain point, even with the greatest human teacher, the best books, all of that, you really can't progress without these deep relationships. Whether you have one plant spirit familiar, a few, a family of them, it doesn't matter the specifics. What matters is that you have guardians and guides from the other side who are channeling information, guidance, wisdom, initiation into your life. So the plant spirit familiar is a personal guide. They are related to the way that we have seen and worked with plant spirit familiars in other forms of magic and sorcery across time and place. It's all really the same thing. In my work in the green art and green sorcery, we are of course centering the plant spirits, and so our relationship with the other world focuses on the green realm, the green aspect of the other world, and our relationship with spirits is with the plant spirits. So how does one come across a plant spirit familiar? There are lots of ways. We can't cover all of them here, but I want to cover one of them that's my favorite. And that is that in lore and also in contemporary experience, we are often gifted a plant spirit familiar either by a teacher or by a deity who is a deity that is linked intimately to the green realm. So a deity of agriculture, of viticulture, of the forest, of wildness, of greenness. You get the point. So it is oftentimes our relationship with a really big personality or a personality who shares this realm with us, like a human teacher or even books sometimes, or a deity who's got a big personality that can make their awareness and their presence known through lore and ritual a little more strongly on our side of the hedge, where a plant spirit familiar is gifted. And the way that unfolds for each individual person is pretty unique. In fact, I don't think I've heard the same process twice, right? It's very, very personal. Again, it's kind of meeting you where you are. It's catering to what you're able to deal with. And even the way that different deities and different teachers might deliver a plant spirit familiar or open up the gates to that relationship happening or be the catalyst by which maybe a quieter plant spirit familiar is able to become known to the seeker, right? There's all these different angles. It's very, very powerful, and this is something that we see a lot in magical ritual lore, that a hero or a deity or god or goddess sort of opens the way for the person to have their plant spirit familiar come through. So we say that they are gifted, right? But there are lots of other ways too. Sometimes we have the relationship come through synchronicity, or the plant spirit just keeps showing up and bugging us, poking us until we finally listen, or they appear in dreams, or in ritual, or in journey work, or whatever, and we start exploring that relationship, and it leads somewhere quite powerful. So anything is possible. In fact, it's really important, I think, in this work to try to just let go of the expectations, right? That, oh, this is how it has to happen in order for it to happen, because by doing that, you might limit yourself or block yourself off from a way that it's trying to happen. So it's just like any relationship with another human, right? You kind of just have to let it unfold how it unfolds. So another big aspect of this, a huge mystery, this is the part that's the hardest to talk about because it's easier to just facilitate situations where people have the experience themselves. But our plant spirit familiars act as a personal world tree, right? They become for us a direct and personal link to the plant spirits all. That by working with them, we are in relationship with the entirety of the green realm. That by having a deep connection to one plant, we have a deep connection to all plants. So here we come back to this idea that every plant is a liminal being, every plant is an embodied crossroads, right? But our plant spirit familiars really become bridges, gateways, points of liminality that are tied intrinsically into the liminal crossroads space within us. So as we are working with this particular plant spirit or tree spirit that we've become very close to, and sitting with them daily and taking their medicine if that's safe for us, and aligning to the dance of the seasons based on the way that plant does their dance, and journeying with them and meditating and dreaming with them, we are given this open pass to the entire group of beings who inhabit the same world they do. So while that particular plant spirit's wisdom and virtues are coming through for us, we also find interesting synchronicities with other plants. We find that it's easier for us to communicate with plants, that we're inspired to work with other plants when that's relevant, that other plants are able to come onto our radar more easily than they were before. So the plant spirit familiar becomes a personal world tree, a personal symbol for the way of nature, for the mysteries of birth and death and rebirth, for the way that the different worlds interact with one another, the different realms parallel and saturate one another. That familiar in our work, instead of just being a spirit rooted in the other world, they become a personal symbol, a personal working map of otherness. So this is very important. As we go deeper and deeper into our work with a familiar plant spirit, there is a type of merging that happens for folks. I remember my own personal experiences of this were quite shocking and unexpected, but always felt right. Even as I was being challenged to extend myself in ways that would create room for these deeper powers to come in, there was some part of me that was like, yes, even though this is a little uncomfortable, go ahead and do it. So that idea of merging is that as we continue to sit with the plant, again, if they're safe for us to take internally, maybe we're taking small doses of them every day to learn from them within, to follow their medicine, to be taught from inside of ourselves. Or if they're not safe for us to take internally, maybe we're carrying a bit of them in our pocket, or just sitting with them every day, or working with the flower essence of them, or a homeopathic remedy of them, that we start to experience their presence inside of our body. We start to experience that we carry their virtues, their powers, their areas of influence, their wisdom inside of our bones and inside of our blood. That when we take the medicine, when we smolder the incense, when we sit under their canopy, when we put them in our pocket, when we bathe in them, we find that it's almost as though they begin to grow a version of themselves inside of our bodies. And for me, this always sort of follows the outline of my skeleton, that the spinous trunk holds a space for my plant spirit familiars to exist within me, within the world of me, as they exist within the world of name and form. So we carry them after oftentimes years of relationship. We start to carry them with us. And all the things that we do in this work start to be informed and empowered by their voice as well as our own. So while we are doing whatever work we do, whatever sorcerous arts we do, we are coming through with many voices, with many powers, right? There's a great deal of strength that comes through in what we say, what we do, what we craft, because we're not alone. We're now allied, deeply allied to plant spirits who, when we do the work, show up to assist our hands to do that work. So this is not a situation where we're mounted or possessed or anything like that. It's nothing like that. We are fully who we are. We're just surrounded by others who add their power to our power. They mix their magic with our magic. They mix their medicine with our medicine. So this is where these spirit relationships of familiarship get really powerful. And when the person holds that, the medicine they make changes. The rituals they perform change. The magic they make changes. It goes into that level we all aspire to be at, right? So another really interesting thing about plant spirit familiars is that they will often show up in the ways that we serve other people. So for example, I am a practicing professional herbalist, and those plant spirit familiars that I have tend to show up often in the medicine that I craft for my community. Maybe in tiny doses, maybe in micro doses, but the power of my relationship with that plant is brought into the medicine I make, which then carries into the people who take that medicine, right? So there's this really interesting way that even though we're practicing good herbalism and matching people, human people, with the plant persons that are the right fit for their goals, our familiars continue to show up to give their blessings, to give their power into the work that we do. And it's, of course, one of my favorite aspects of this work. So how do we win a plant spirit familiar? This is, of course, what we all want to know, right? It's the same way that you win friends in this world. You show up, do the work, be yourself, engage and participate in the green arts, garden, steward, communicate, sit, ritual, medicine, magic. You just show up. And the thing about the plants is they all tell their friends. They're all very much connected, right? That mycelial network of fungi is representative of the fact that all plant spirits are in communication with all plant spirits. And so when you show up and do work with a plant, when you make medicine, when you learn herbalism, when you explore types of herbal magic, when you sit with a tree at a park regularly and create a relationship, when you do intentional communication, whatever the situation is, you are chipping away at the boundary that separates our world from their world. You're starting to soften the membrane of separation so that you become more green-blooded, that it's easier for the plants to share with you, it's easier for you to share with the plants, and it's easier for both of you to see each other, right? Which is a good thing. So the way to win plant spirit familiar is to engage with plant spirits, engage with the deities that you feel called to, if any, that have a relationship with the plant spirits, with the green realm. Do the work, that's the only way. The sorcerous arts, the magical arts, while they have been relegated to armchair philosophy in the contemporary world, are very little about what we think. The parts of spirit, the parts of mind that we're trying to dovetail with, don't much respond to dialogue, or thought. They respond to what we do, how we act, how we show up, how we participate. So instead of reading, taking notes, watching videos, and then stopping, we can do all of that, get inspired, and then take the next step and actually show up. And again, if that showing up is sitting in your own backyard garden in a particular mindset of openness, acknowledgement of who the plant spirits are, and a willingness to engage, that's you showing up. It doesn't need to be grandiose and complicated and expensive, right? It can just be a devotion through your energy and your time and your willingness to go on the journey. And from there, things just go the right direction. They go where they're supposed to go for you, because the plants will always give you medicine that is tailored to who you are as an individual person. One important thing to note about plant spirit familiars, and I've had a handful of people ask me about this over the years, yes, they can change. Sometimes the plant spirit familiar, who is the most important voice in our practice right now, won't be in a year or two, 5 years, 10 years. Sometimes we do work with a plant deeply, intimately, powerfully, like we go in deep, only to have that plant spirit familiar then move us to someone else to further the work, that they show up for us in a way that works for them based on who and where we are. And as we grow, the relationship has to change. And there will always be a connection. Once a familiar, always a familiar. We will always be in deep trust, in deep rapport with that plant spirit. We will always bow our head when we see them growing in nature. We will always call on them to come into our medicine, maybe keep a space for them on our plant spirit altars, whatever. But the relationships change. They ebb and flow. They change and transform. That's the nature of this work. It seems to be really hard for people, to let relationships change, let them go, be handed off, but we are the students in this situation, and we have to trust, and we have to always want to grow. And we're never cut off. We're never silenced. The relationships just change. So hopefully this has given you some insight to the best of my abilities of what I can openly talk about through a video. Some nods and some inspiration towards what deeper plant spirit familiar work looks like. If you have experiences or questions, I would love to hear them. Drop them in the comments. And of course, if you want to go deeper into this work, I invite you to support what I'm doing here by joining me over on Patreon. There's a link down in the video information here, and you can get access to a bunch of advanced courses that take where we've started here to the next level. So with that, we'll see you next time.